Good evening, Sunshine Coast, and welcome to another episode of Local Focus, episode 16. And I'm your host, Darren from Digital Barista, where I serve up freshly brewed content strategies, tips and tricks to help small business owners and entrepreneurs get started with live streaming. And if you own a small business and you're here on the Sunshine Coast and you'd like to know more about how you can get featured on Local Focus, just drop me a DM or in the message, in the comments there, and I'll reach out and we'll have a chat. Now, tonight's episode's a pretty cool one. A lot of people, if you live on the Sunshine Coast, would have seen this, we'll call it a vehicle, getting around, and it's pretty prominent in our skies, and it is Paradise Seaplanes. And I'm here with the owner, Sean. How you going, Sean?
Yeah,
Thanks
good.
for coming into the studio.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. So everyone knows, I think it's called Willie, isn't it?
She is?
Yeah. So it might be a little bit weird if I said, let's talk about your Willie, but
That's right.
yeah. So just tell us a little bit more about Paradise Seaplanes, how the idea came about, and it didn't start here on the Sunshine Coast.
No,
did
we
it?
started at Harvey Bay. I have always been fascinated with seaplanes. And so a number of years ago, I decided I'm going to do it. I had owned a flight school in the U.S. and have been self-employed for most of my life. And when I first came to Australia, I thought, oh, it'd be really good to work for somebody else for a while. You know, the idea of coming into work and having them say, oh, the elevator cable on the airplane broke, and just be able to go, oh, that's too bad. Call me when it's fixed. I thought, oh, how good would that be? So I worked for a flight school when I first came here. And I discovered that it's not as much fun working for somebody else as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I really want to go back to doing my own thing. And like I said, I'd always been fascinated with float planes. So I thought, well, let's look into doing that. Let's start a float plane business. So I did.
Yeah.
And started at Harvey Bay. We originally, when I was doing all my research, I looked at the prevailing winds and the water conditions and everything, and the prevailing winds were out of the south, which was great because it makes the bay nice and flat. All good. And for about the first year and a half that I was at Harvey Bay, the wind came out of the north almost every flipping day.
I know what that bay is like with the northerly blowing.
I'll tell you what, it is so choppy.
Yeah.
And we were having to cancel flights left, right, and center because of the water conditions.
Yeah.
And I think the final straw was over Christmas, where the weather was just absolutely spectacular. I mean, not a breath of wind, sunshine, not a cloud in the sky, people everywhere, phone ringing off the hook, and a cyclone sitting offshore, setting up a 3 meter swell. And I just went, oh, I'm over it. So we decided that we needed to find a more protected body of water.
Sheltered waterway. Yeah.
And I looked around, and I thought, oh, the Marucci River would be really good. So we started the process of trying to make that happen.
Yep.
And it took us about a year to get a temporary permit, a trial permit to see how it would go. And once we were going, we got a tremendous amount of community support. And I think one of the best things is the number of people that I have that stop by and say, oh, we're so glad you're here. We love seeing the airplane. And
it is like, if I'm driving down the river, I'm looking to see if you're going to be taken off, or landing or whatever the case may be. It's just one of those things that I think people are fascinated with flight.
Yeah.
And more so the fact that you're taking off and landing on the water. That's pretty cool.
It is. And I think another thing that is really good about it is that it's an airplane that's sort of out in the wild. So back when you and I were kids, you could actually go to a small airport and walk out onto the apron and look at the airplanes and touch them and talk to pilots. And I think a lot of kids sort of caught the aviation bug by doing that. And nowadays you go to the airport and, they're all behind fences and barbed wire and, and it makes them seem like something that's remote and something that's scary. It must be scary if you got to keep it behind a fence with barbed wire.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the best things about it is because it's out in the wild, the number of especially kids that'll stop by and go, oh, look at that, seaplane, a water plane. And if we're not busy, I'm very happy to, go up and say, hey, would you like a closer look? And, and put the kids up in the airplane and let them have a bit of a look at it. And, if I can infect a couple of more young people with the aviation bug, I figure my work is done.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not just the little kids, it's the big kids too.
That's it. That's exactly right.
And I remember when you first came here, because, if you guys don't know, I've had a sort of passion for photography for a fair while. And that was one of those things. It was, I had a vision of this image that I could make for, with the seaplane, because it is such a cool looking airplane as well.
Thank you. Well, that was one of the reasons that we wanted that particular aircraft.
Yeah.
When I was, she's fairly rare. There's not a lot of, this is a Wilga 80. There's only 4 of them in Australia. And this is the only Wilga 80 in Australia on floats. So, and as far as I can tell, it's the only Wilga 80 on floats in the Southern Hemisphere. So it is pretty rare. But when I was looking to start the business, I had sort of a list of things that I wanted to have in an airplane. The first thing was quiet, because I knew that trying to get the permits was going to be very difficult, and that noise would be right up at the top of the list. So it needed something quiet, and this is probably the quietest piston-driven aircraft in the world. The official federal noise certificate for it is 61.8 decibels, which is a little bit louder than what we're talking right now.
Yeah.
And that's at takeoff power.
Oh, wow.
So it's it's very quiet aircraft. And then I wanted something that was easy to get in and out of, because I knew.
While we're talking, I'll just pop that one on there, and we'll get that one going. Well, people can watch that while we're talking.
Yeah.
There we go.
So I wanted something that was easy to get in and out of, because I knew that a lot of our customers were going to be older. And I don't know if you've ever tried to get in and out of the back seat of a Cessna, but...
Well, I have. And I'm 6'3". So.
Yeah, it would have been a challenge. So you got to be a contortionist to get in and out of the back of those things. So I wanted something that was easy to get in and out of. And this airplane, the entire side of the airplane opens up. So
well, it does, and that's one thing I noticed in the photos, is that with the doors off, it looks quite spacious, doesn't it? And it's a brilliant sort of viewing platform.
Oh, it is. It's spectacular. It's got more glass than a helicopter. I mean, it's just, it really is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I also wanted something that was unusual.
Yep.
Because I wanted people to drive down the road and go, what? What's that? Never seen one of those.
Yeah.
And so, and I wanted something that was obviously that could be put on floats. And sort of near the bottom of the list was a radial engine, just because radials are cool. I mean, no practical reason, just radials are cool. And so I started looking at different airplanes, and I came across the Wilga, and it just pretty much tick, right down the road. And I thought, so I thought I'd probably have to go to the US or to Europe to get one, because I thought, there aren't that many of them to begin with, and how many, didn't know how many were in Australia, but I figured it wasn't a lot. And I opened up the local aviation trader, and there she was in Melbourne.
Well, it was meant to be, wasn't it?
It was. So,
and I guess we're fairly spoilt for choice when we talk about Sunshine Coast, because you've got so much within a pretty close range, and you sort of cover probably up to Double Island Point.
Yeah, we'll go up as far as Double Island Point.
Yeah.
And then south, we've got one flight that does Noosa to the Glasshouse Mountains. That's really, really popular.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty spectacular to be able to get out there amongst the Glasshouse Mountains and see them from a different perspective.
It would be. And I guess it's a fairly, as far as planes go, it's a fairly slow sort of plane as well.
It's a very slow airplane.
Yeah.
When I bought it, it was on wheels.
Yep.
And I bought it down in Melbourne. It took me 3 days to get home. So she's very slow.
You could have strapped it to a car and gotten here quicker.
Way faster. Way faster. It's another thing that makes it unusual is that most airplanes are sort of a compromise. So they do a lot of things fairly well, but nothing really well. This airplane was designed to be an observation plane. And that's what they designed.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely brilliant for that. It's stable at slow speeds. It's quiet. It's got, incredible visibility. It is rubbish for anything else. It's slow. It drinks a lot of fuel. It doesn't carry much fuel.
Yeah.
So, but for what we're doing with it, it is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And so I think you can take 2 to 3 people max?
We can take 3 passengers, but we're weight limited to a total of 200 kilos of passenger weight. So it just depends on how big everybody is.
Yeah.
So you and one other smaller person, we'd be right.
Yeah, that wouldn't fit 2 of me. But, and I guess it's something that there's some probably special events that happen up in the plane from time to time. I think I've seen once or twice there's been a proposal or 2.
We've had a number of people that have proposed, and so far our success rate, 100%. So that's really good, and that's always a really awesome thing.
Yeah, it is nice to be able to share in those moments, I guess, isn't it?
It is, and I think that's probably one of the things I like the best about what I'm doing, is being able to be a part of not just proposals and that sort of thing, but all kinds of really special and important events in people's lives, whether it's anniversaries or birthdays or whatever. And I think one of the things that is most amazing to me is the number of times that I've been sitting out there between flights and had somebody come up and say, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I went for a flight on a seaplane. And they'll stand there and spend 10 minutes telling me about a flight they did 30 years ago. And you think, how good is that?
That's it.
What a privilege to be part of something that's going to be that kind of a memory. And in terms of a gift for somebody, that's amazing. How many things can you give somebody that they're still going to remember in 30 years, let alone still be talking about?
Well, the value extends beyond just the flight itself.
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah. And memories. I think memories are one of those things that I guess particularly for kids as well as the grown-ups, but particularly kids, if they can have an experience like that, then that is going to stay with them for a lifetime.
It does.
Yeah, yeah. Now that's really cool. And the best way to get in touch with you, you've got a couple of. You've got the Facebook page, which we've got Facebook, down there as well, and I've got the website, paradiseseaplanes.com.au up on the screen there at the moment. So if people want to find out more about it, they just head there. All your contact details are there.
Yep.
You fly Thursday through to Monday
from 9 to 3, weather permitting.
Yep.
So if it's rainy and crummy, we're not there, or if it's really windy, we're not there.
Yeah.
And also, if we're not there, there is no trace of us, because that was unfortunately one of the conditions of the permit, was that anytime we're not there, we can't leave any trace. So I've had a number of people say, well, I tried to find you and there was nothing around that said where you were. And I went, yeah, I know, sorry about that. But
but that's the best place, I guess, is they can just jump online. You're always posting stuff regularly.
And just be careful if you are going to search us, just if you go to Google and put in Seaplane Maroochydore, a lot of times people don't realize that the first few listings that often come up are paid ads.
Right.
So, we do have our flights listed with Red Balloon and Adrenaline and those guys.
Yep.
But we only have 1 flight or 2 flights that are available through those companies because of the commission that they charge.
Sure. Yeah. So it's best to book direct.
Best to book direct.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, someone's always on the phone anyway, so you can, and I think that's the thing is, if people are looking, they support small business and they sort of do directly with the business, is always a good way to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, look, I do appreciate you coming in, Sean, and I could sit here and talk for a lot longer, but I know you've got to get home, and
I do.
You've got a fair way to go, so I won't hold you back. But I do appreciate you coming in, and it's definitely on my list of things to do.
Awesome.
So I will get there eventually. But thanks again for coming in.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. It was very fun being here.
Terrific. So there you have it, guys. Another episode of Local Focus. And yeah, by all means, like, it's one of those things, if you want to do something different, it sounds like a fantastic experience. I've been in small planes before, but I haven't been in a seaplane, so I'm sure it's a very different experience. So jump on and support local. And Sean's a super nice guy. You've got a couple of other pilots there as well.
A couple other guys that work for me as ground crew.
Ground crew, yeah.
Yep.
So you're the
And
chief pilot.
I am. The ground crew guys are all young commercial pilot students.
Yep.
And as much as I'd like to be able to give them their first job flying, insurance is very, very difficult.
Pretty crazy.
I've actually got a guy right now that I'm trying to put on part-time that has 14,000 hours total time. He's a A320, A330 captain, XF-111 pilot. He's only got 15 hours on floats with about 75 water landings, and the insurance company just went, no. What do you mean no? He's only got 15 hours on floats and 75 water landings. No. So.
Yeah. Okay. It is a bit crazy, but anyway. So, Sean's your guy. That's the main thing, and absolutely get on down there and make it happen. And weather's pretty good at the moment, so book it in and enjoy yourself.